Students, today we are going to learn about different types of 3D shapes. Let us first have a look on different 3D shapes. As you all can see here, sphere, prism, cuboid, cube, cylinder, pyramid and cone. These are completely different from 2D shapes. And 2D shapes are circle, triangle, rectangle. As these 3D shapes have length, breadth and height, they are called as three-dimensional shapes. Now in this lecture, we will discuss some of the 3D shapes. Just have a look on this picture and try to find the name of this. Yes, it is cube. A cube is a three-dimensional shape. It has 6 faces. See this front, back and that back part, the upper part, all these make the faces of cube. So there are 6 faces. Cube has 8 vertices and 12 edges. Vertices are the corner part. So there are total 8 vertices, 4 upper side and 4 lower side, and it has 12 edges. If you will see in the picture, you will easily understand the edges, the corners and this part makes the face. So there are 6 faces, 8 vertices and 12 edges. Now let's move to another shape. What do you understand by this? This is a shape called as prism. As we can see here, this part is called as base and bases are identical and they are facing each other. This is called as prism, a three-dimensional shape with 2 identical bases here. And there are different types of prisms. Prisms can be, first we will see here what are the different types of prisms. Prisms can be triangular prisms in which 3 rectangles are there. It can be square prisms. It can be pentagonal prisms, 5 rectangles. It can be rectangular prisms. It can be hexagonal prism, octagonal and trapezoidal prism. So these are some of the types of prisms. Now first we will see the video and understand the concept of prism.
In this video, we try to understand one of the most interesting three-dimensional shapes. It's called a prism. Most people think of a prism as something like this, but have no idea about its correct definition. So let's erase this and start with the definition of a prism. It's a three-dimensional shape that has identical parallel ends and all flat faces. Well, it's the most confusing definition ever. Identical, parallel, flat, there are just too many things. So forget the definition for now. Let's just look at figures and understand prisms. Look at this three-dimensional figure. The most important thing in topic of three-dimensional shapes is visualizing the shapes. Few of the lines are dotted because those are the lines that cannot be seen from this view. Look at the ends of this figure. It's a long figure with 2 ends. Now let me color the 2 ends for you. This figure has 2 triangles at its ends. And it has 3 rectangles as faces. This one in the front, one at the back and one at the bottom. Now we look at the definition. It says that the ends are identical and parallel. They are identical since both are triangles and both the triangles are parallel to each other. The definition also says that all its faces should be flat. And in this figure, all faces are flat. They are rectangles. This, by the way, is called a triangular prism. Here's another three-dimensional shape. Let me color its ends. We can see that it has 2 rectangles as ends and they are also parallel to each other. And it has 4 rectangles as faces. One on the right hand side, one on the left hand side, one at the top and one at the bottom. So all its faces are flat. This is called a rectangular prism. So if you noticed, the prisms are defined by its ends. Triangles as its ends, triangular prism. Rectangles at its ends, rectangular prism. Look at the rectangular prism. Does this shape remind you of another three-dimensional shape? Yes, a rectangular prism is also a cuboid. Now let's look at a few figures and understand if they are prisms or not. Remember the definition: identical parallel ends and all flat surfaces. Here's the first figure. It's a part of a pipe. Both the ends are circles and are parallel to each other. It means that this figure has identical parallel ends. This figure has identical parallel ends but has a curved surface. Hence, it's not a prism. I want to emphasize there are only two things that make a three-dimensional shape a prism: identical and parallel ends, and all its faces flat. Here, the ends are flat but the surface is curved, so it's not a prism. Here's another figure. First, we look at the ends. Both are triangles and hence we can say that this figure has identical ends. But wait, they are not parallel. The upper triangle is slightly tilted. So this figure as well is not a prism. Now assume we have a plane with a rectangle on it. If we project the rectangle upwards, equally from all sides, we get a prism. In this figure, we have projected all the sides to the same height. But what if we do not project all the sides to equal heights? If we do not project it equally, like in this figure, we do not get a prism. This is not a prism as its ends are not parallel.
As we have understood the different types of prisms and how can we identify the particular prism, whether it is triangular prism, square prism. Now we will focus on triangular prism. A prism having three rectangles with two identical faces. You can see here this front face and the back faces are identical and they have three rectangles. So it is a three-sided prism. It has five faces. If you will count, these three rectangles and these two faces make five faces of a prism. It has six vertices, three here, 1, 2, 3, and 3 will be at the back side. So total 6 vertices. It has 9 edges, as we can count here: 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, the back side 6, 7, 8, and the last will be the next, which is hidden. 9 edges. Now here you can clearly see and count also the edges: 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and this part is 8, and this, the lower part, is 9. So there are total 9 edges which we have counted here. It is all about triangular prism. Let's move to another prism, that is pentagonal prism. Penta means 5. So it has 5 rectangles with 2 pentagonal bases. You all can see this base. This is the base. So it has 2, one upper side and one lower side, which is not seen here. So there are 2 pentagonal bases and it has 5 rectangular sides. So all makes total 7 faces. And it has 10 vertices and 15 edges. These are the vertices and these are the edges, which joins at a common point. Now let's move to another prism, that is hexagonal prism. Hexa means 6. So it has 6 rectangle faces as well as 2 hexagonal bases. This is the upper base and this is the lower base. So it has hexagonal bases of identical shapes. And it has 8 faces. As I told you, 6 rectangular faces will be this, and upper and lower will make the total 8 faces. And these are the vertices dotted this the cornered part. So there are 12 vertices, and it has edges 18. 1, 2. If you will count like this, you will get the 18 edges. See, this is the complete shape of hexagonal prism. Now what we have learned today, let's summarize. We have learned about cube, how many faces, vertices and edges it has. Then we learned about prism and different types of prism. Then we learned in detail about triangular prism along with the faces, vertices and edges, then pentagonal prisms and hexagonal prism. So today we have completed this. Now in the next class we will solve the worksheet based upon different types of 3D shapes.